evening. Good evening. Welcome to another episode of the New Black Leadership Coalition here on Intellectual Radio, iHeartRadio.com. I am filling in this week for our regular host, Brother Gregory Sane, who's out. And my name is Minister Michael Muhammad, the founder of the New Black Leadership Coalition. Happy to be with you once again. I want to thank all of you who tune in week after week or whenever you tune in to hear what message we're trying to deliver, what information we're trying to share. I want to encourage you to share this feed on your page. I promise I will do my best to speak well to your friends and followers. As you know, each week we try to cover issues and topics relevant to the black people in America, to the struggle of black people here in our headquarters city of Chicago and abroad. And so tonight we are coming to you live on what is called Memorial Day weekend, where this holiday, as it's called, is a time that the United States of America has carved out a day to remember the fallen soldiers who have died in the theaters of war throughout the world on behalf of the United States of America. And so I want to dive into that a little bit tonight, if you guys don't mind, because I know a lot of us as black people, we wait for Memorial Day weekend. It's what we call the kickoff of summer. And so we're geared up, waiting for warm weather, waiting for friendly skies, waiting for beaches to open, waiting to break out our barbecue grills and get our sound systems ready. And some of us who, with means, we have allocated resources to go on cruises and go to beautiful places in the world, vacation and whatnot. And Memorial Day is a signal for all of this. For most black people, it's a we've assimilated ourselves into the mind of the average American. And so I want to challenge that mindset a little bit. So maybe some of you listening, or many of you that may listen and view this, you're maybe a little more or a lot more conscious about where I'm going to go or try to go in talking a little bit tonight about this ideal of Memorial Day. And so if you go, I don't know how many of you have or pay attention to white America, but white America takes great pride in today. And so I've got a few folks that I've seen on social media from that are not black folks, celebrating with showing these elaborate displays of so-called patriotism, and relishing in the red, white, and blue, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I want to dig into this thing, Memorial Day, because like everything else we do in America, we paint with a broad brush. We whitewash everything. We color everything after the view of white America. And the truth is, black people, that most of us as Americans, or most of us in America, we are pretty uninformed population. We are the most uninformed voters. We're the most uninformed spenders. We're the most uninformed population probably on the earth, especially in relationship to the so-called access to education inside of the United States, most of us cannot name more than one or two presidents. Most of us cannot name more than one or two secretaries of state. Most of us cannot repeat or recite any facts around American history, but we have been socialized or programmed, if you will, to wave the flag, to stand and salute, to put our hand over our heart, and so many of us, even as black people, we're just as offended, some of us, with a man like Colin Kaepernick for taking a knee during the national anthem, uh, to bring attention to police brutality as many in white America have been. And so I want us to think a little deeper about Memorial Day with these few minutes we have together. And of course, I was not expecting to be tonight's host, and so I'm going to do the best I can with what the Spirit has put on my mind to talk about tonight in line with this holiday. So we're celebrating young men primarily who have donned the uniform of the armed forces of the United States of America, who have gone into the theater of war or just outside of in support of the theater of war and have lost their lives. And so we have a fondness in the United States of America saying that they died for our freedom. And so I want to try to examine that a little deeper than just face value, that your brother, your father, your uncle, your cousin, your friend, your uh, went off into the Army, the Navy, the Marines, the Air Force, the Coast Guard, etc., and they lost their life, or their lives for our freedom in America, to give us the freedom to do what we do inside of the boundaries of the United States of America. And if it were not for these brave men, primarily, and women, then we would not have the freedoms that we enjoy. I want to look. I've been wondering about the validity of this almost slogan, this mantra we've been trained to utter on Memorial Day and a few other days, and in general about the United States military. So we all, or most of us, have some relative who served in the United States military in some branch. But do they die for our so called freedom? And if they died for our freedom, the next question is, are we truly free? Well, of course, those of us who do well, those of us who have regular gainful employment, those of us who are able to take vacations, those of us who are able to afford to get a mortgage, or buy a home, or drive reliable cars or nice cars, and send our children to school, and buy them whatever they need as they matriculate through life. We feel as though we're free because we can buy a plane ticket or a boat ticket or a train ticket, or we can get in our car and we can hit the road and we can afford the gas. And we go in the voting booth and we can pick who we think we should pick as an elected official. We equate all of these behaviors with real freedom. And at a mundane level, I will agree that is a level of freedom. But are we truly free especially as black people in the United States of America, but not only black people, is the average American free? How do you know if you're free? Real freedom means to me that my thoughts are not controlled. It means that I have the freedom to think for myself. I have the ability to pursue the truth, live the truth, stand up on that truth, and demand from others the same. It means that I should not expect to be persecuted if I raise a question about my government or the government. It means that I should have the freedom, have the security to not worry about being mistreated, being oppressed or suppressed, being brutalized, being captured or tortured or falsely imprisoned or unfairly in prison. All of these are elements of real freedom. It means that I should be able to go in the grocery store or any place that serves food and not fear that I'm being sold a food product that is made to taste good, but the longer I consume it, the more health risk is in its consumption because it has been manufactured in a way to maximize the profit of corporation at the expense of my health. It means that I should be able to go to a doctor and not expect that the doctor will take advantage of me and give me drugs that will destroy my health and make me a drug addict, a pharmaceutical drug addict, or make me surrender myself to a surgery or a procedure that will shorten my life but promise financial reward to the doctor and others in the medical system. It means that I should be secure knowing that if I have to stand in front of a judge, that I don't have to worry about corrupt prosecutors fabricating evidence or hiding evidence, all in the name of bolstering a record that will bring them increased financial reward. Or I don't have to stand in front of a corrupt, racist judge who will deal with me based upon his or her racial animus toward me based on the color of my skin. These are the elements of freedom. It means that my children should be able to walk downtown or near north or wherever they go. They should be able to have an encounter with law enforcement without me having to fear for the life of my son or my daughter if they have an encounter with those who are supposed to serve and protect. That's an element of freedom. So I'm asking you who are listening and watching, do we really enjoy freedom? Because if we have real freedom, we got to deal with whether or not we have these elements. You see, freedom. The soldiers died for our freedom, and that's why we have a Memorial Day. Well, you may not realize this, but as I was thinking about this, I went to look at America's record of war. And you may not believe this, black people or good people who are watching or listening, but the United States of America, since its inception in 1775, with the beginning of the Revolutionary War, has not had a year up until this very moment without war, without being engaged in some major war or some military conflict or intervention somewhere on the planet. There has not been 1 year since 1775 that people have not been uh, slaughtered, if you will, in the name of American interests. That's pretty good. America is not even 500 years old. But she's been at war every year, nonstop, since 1775. She's had so many wars that it would probably take me another 10 minutes. I wrote them all down. And because the more I looked at it, the more fascinated I became. America's had over 118 military engagements, many going on at the same time. She's been at war all over the world, from right here in America against the British, from right here in the United States with the slaughter, the wholesale slaughter through military campaign of the original inhabitants of this part of the world that we call Indians, the Native Americans. She's had war after war with the Native Americans since 1775. She even convinced many Native American tribes to go to war with her against other Native American tribes. She's been at war over taxes, whiskey. She's been at war, oh my God, throughout the Caribbean. From one island to the next, she's been at war. In Dominican Republic, in Haiti, in Cuba, in Puerto Rico. She's been at war all throughout Africa, on the Ivory Coast. America apparently loves war. What nation would remain at war nonstop from 1775 up until 2019? Nonstop, not a year without her military somewhere on the planet shooting, killing, bombing people, not for what we call our freedom, because what freedom does it afford the people of the United States to go to a little place like Haiti and engage in military conflict? What threat is Haiti or Grenada or Dominican Republic to the freedoms of the people of the United States of America? What threat were the Navajo or the Apache or the Sioux or dozens of other tribes of Native Americans who are out on the plains minding their business, and European settlers came on their land and encroached on the land? And when the Native American objected, the settlers loaded their guns and they called on the military. When the settlers couldn't win, then they called on the military, and the military came to back up these land thieves and encroachers with heavier armaments to justify the taking of land, even many times when the United States government sat down at the table with the leaders of Native Americans and had treaty with them, had written agreement with them, and they would turn around and slaughter them anyway. What threat were the Native Americans really to the United States of America that it required their wholesale slaughter down in the Seminole War, taking their land, forcing them to move under threat of arm? Now, I know this may not strike you well if you're a flag waver. If your mama and your daddy taught you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, to sing the national anthem, and you've been doing that all your life. You go to work, you do what you're told. You go to work, you follow the boss's instructions. You pay your taxes. You vote. You follow the American way. And so when you hear people like me saying those things, you're defensive automatically. You are offended automatically. But if you are defensive and offended by me reciting the facts of history of the United States of America, then don't be angry at me. You should be angry at your teachers, because they left out a lot of information. They misinformed you and miseducated you about the reality of the society and the world that we live in. Because while we're partying and barbecuing, we're doing that standing in the blood of people who have been martyred for the so-called American idea. And most of them look like you and me. Most of them were connected to us some kind of way. And I know it's tough when you hear somebody speaking like this, but the truth must be spoken, even though it may be a little uncomfortable. So how much freedom do we have? When you've gone into the voting booth. In my lifetime, you voted at least twice for president, for two people who won the popular vote, and the powers that be said, look, we don't want that person in power, therefore we're going to use the electoral college to usurp the will, the freedom, the exercise of freedom by the mass population of the United States of America. We're going to nullify their freedom and choose the person that will serve what we think will be our interests. So even the freedom of voting, do we really have the freedom and the power of our vote? Reason with me. On this Memorial Day, which is a holiday, well, I'll get to that. But anyway, as I began to write down this roster of wars that America has engaged in nonstop, it is amazing the number of lives that America has destroyed. By her own record, more than 40 million American soldiers have died some way in these conflicts and these wars since 1775. Over 40 million. Now, there are 40 million roughly black people now in the United States of America. So just to put it in context, that would be like somebody murdering every black man, woman, and child inside of the United States of America. That's how many young white boys, black boys, Hispanic boys, Asian boys, etc., have gone into a recruitment office, been drafted into service, and donned a uniform on behalf of the government of the United States of America under the false pretense that we're going here and fighting this war for the freedom of the American people and lost their lives, when all along, when you uncover the reasoning, the motive behind most of these wars, they are attached to some wealthy robber baron, some wealthy elitist family that's in the top 3%, or some super conglomerate multinational corporation who wanted the land, who wanted the oil, who wanted the gold, who wanted the diamonds or the rubber or the platinum or the bauxite or whatever resource that place had. There was some corporation who pushed their will through a corrupt political system that caused troops to be deployed to take the resources of a people who represented no threat to the United States of America's so-called freedom. And our sons, our daughters, our relatives have gone somewhere on foreign shores and died, not for some freedom, but in truth, to prop up the wealth of the elite. Let's talk about it. And if I'm lying, prove it to me that I'm lying. Because white people today will tell you that all of these wars have been propagated, lobbied for by multinational corporations. Just as we have, or you have, a president in office now who is unabashedly using his office for financial gain, for his own personal Trump enterprise and his immediate family and friends. He's doing it unabashedly. And the Congress of the United States of America is so cowardly that they are afraid to check him. Trump didn't start this kind of behavior. This behavior has been going on for really from the beginning of the so-called United States of America. It's been about money for the wealthy. It's just that Trump is not a polished statesman. You know, for a politician, he's what you might call a little ghetto. He's a little ratchet for elected official. But here he's doing nothing that every white person in that office and the one black one, the one obvious black one that was there, did the same thing. Yes, I'm talking about Barack Obama. He did the same thing. He facilitated, cooperated, and complied with corporate interests while he was in there. So if we're going to deal with Memorial Day, if we're going to honor people who gave their lives, shouldn't we honor their life by exposing the real reason that their government sent them to die? Or should we continue to play this fantasy game? If somebody kills me, I want somebody to think enough of me to not let somebody lie about why I died. Tell the truth about the loss of my life. Don't lie about my death. Tell the truth. If you love my life or you respect what my life is supposed to represent, how can you respect my living when you honor my living with a lie? You dishonor my living. So let's chew on a little bit of the truth. Look it up yourself. It's so many wars. I wanted to read them all, but I'm afraid it's so many that I may lose the little bit of attention you're giving to the show tonight if I begin to read the list of all of these wars that are nonstop. I mean, all around the world. The United States government has spent tax dollars for corporations and wealthy people to maintain their wealth all around the world. So we go to the football game, we go to, a parade, we go to different events, and they roll out the flag, and they come with a drill team, a honor guard, or whatnot to stoke our emotions. Because the truth is, the United States of America is generally a very relatively secure place because nobody wants to go to war with the United States. Uh, and the reason, which makes sense, first of all, most nations outside of Europe are not warmongering people. So their first solution to conflict with other people and other nations is not war. Secondarily, America has proven that she can out murder any country that has ever existed. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. America has proven that she can murder better and more thoroughly, and she's more willing, she's more bloodthirsty than any government that has ever existed. We say Hitler killed 6 million or more. Well, 6 million so-called Jews and tens of thousands more. But how many has America murdered under false pretenses? We can start with the Native Americans. Tens of millions that America slaughtered wholesale. She's gone through the Caribbean Isles, slaughtering by the thousands. She's gone through the Isles of the Pacific, slaughtering by the thousands. She's gone through Africa, slaughtering by the tens of thousands and millions. She's gone through Asia, slaughtering by the tens and hundreds of thousands. She's the only so-called nuclear power that's dropped bombs on innocent, unsuspecting people just to see what would happen. Come on. This is a bitter truth, but it is the truth. You should know what you're saluting. You should know what you're putting your hand over your heart for. You should know what's underneath the songs of patriotism that you sing. You should understand what it means when you encourage your sons and your daughters to go down to the recruitment office and sign up to serve in the military of the United States government of America. You should know what that means. It may be hard to swallow. I understand. But it shouldn't be any harder to swallow than looking at the news or the newspaper every day, seeing our young black boys and girls being murdered in the streets, not only by the police, but by each other. She has so socialized us, miseducated us, engineered us in such a thorough way to hate ourselves that we become her active agents of our own demise. All of these are government operations. These are military operations to go into the land of a people and turn their thinking against themselves. You see it going on right now in Venezuela with Maduro and the other fella. They're down there. See, they've been down there since Hugo Chavez, seeding the minds and the thinking of the Venezuelan people, turning their thinking against one another. You see it on the global stage, but you don't understand it right here in the United States of America. It's been going on to black people for over 400 years. She's turned our thinking against ourselves. but you don't recognize it as that because you doing a little well. You cut the grass every week. You wash the car on the weekend. You barbecue. You open your grill. You watch the Memorial Day games and whatnot. And so you feel as though you don't connect with Pookie and them. You don't connect with Baby and them. I understand. You just been miseducated. And so we can't educate you in one or two broadcasts, but we can try to challenge your thinking so that you'll think a little bit deeper. You think that the only place America went when she went in Vietnam, she dropped leaflets out of the sky on the Vietnamese people, all down in the jungle and whatnot. Why was she dropping leaflets in the middle of a war? Because she was trying to turn the minds of these people against each other, which she was successful at doing. She was spending money to go on Vietnamese radio. They spend money to make movies and television series at the hands of the people they want to overthrow. They find their puppets there and they give them resources to use arts and culture to turn, and education to turn the minds of the people on themselves so that they can fuel a war there and overcome that government for the resources and the wealth of those countries that go to the hands of wealthy conglomerates and multinational corporations. It doesn't happen by accident, people. The problem is, we all have a brain, but most of us never read the owner's manual. I don't know if you caught that. I'm going to say it again. We all have a brain, but very few of us even look at the table of content on the owner's manual. Most of us don't want to think too hard. Most of us get angry at people that try to make us think. And so we reject the so-called freedom fighters. We reject the so-called conscious ones. We reject the enlightened one who would prick our conscience because it's, as we say, ignorance is bliss. Some people say, lie to me. Don't tell me the truth. Please me with a lie. Don't kill me with the truth. A lot of us have this philosophy of life. And so we would rather have a relationship on false pretenses. A lot of us can't have a relationship unless the person is willing to live the lie and look the other way on the truth about us. And if it comes time that we really got to engage in dealing with each other's truth, or somebody engaging me on the truth that they see about me that I'm not dealing with about myself, I will run from that person. I ain't calling that person no more. No, we can't hang no more. Because you've uncovered the truth about me. You've uncovered that I've been perpetrating a fraud in some area or some aspect of my life or myself. So I'm not going to deal with you because that's a difficulty factor that I've never been conditioned through the way I was raised and groomed or my socialization process. I never had to deal with certain deep difficulty factors. I'm used to dealing with the surface material. You know what I mean? I get my home, I go to class, I pay attention, I take notes, I do my homework, I pass all my tests, I follow all the rules, I obey all the teachers. I've never been suspended. I never had a problem in school. I follow all the rules all my life. And if something is a little more complicated, I'm not equipped to deal with that. So most of us, you voted for Hillary Clinton. because you've been programmed. It's the year of the woman. It's all about women. You don't understand that the media, who seeded the media for the last 5 to 10 years at a minimum. They've been slowly seeding the media on this ideal that it's the time of the woman. So everything is seeded with the ideal that women got to come together. Women got to speak up for women. All the ads, you see women, ain't no man there. You see women and children. Where's the man? They'll drop a man in there every now and then. But every book is about women. Every talk show is about women. Everything is women on women. And then they run you up until now here comes a Manchurian candidate called Hillary Clinton. But your mind has already been engineered to thirst for a woman being in office, because now it's our turn as women. We should be the next president because a nigga just was the president. A black man was just the president. So damn it, if the black man can be president, then it's time for white women to be in charge. Think about it. It ain't the first time, because if we go back, to the women's suffrage movement, and you won't know these things unless you read, but if you go back to the women's suffrage movement, white women had got enough of white men. And as usual, we follow white people, whether it's the white man, the white woman, the American so-called Negro. We've been trained to follow white people since 1555. So the white women are up in arms over men. All of a sudden now, black women find a reason to be up in arms over black men, even though black men ain't never been in power in America. Black men have never been respected in America. Black men have never been in a position to oppress black women in America, but our women followed them into the so-called suffrage movement, and they rejected black women in the suffrage movement. They didn't want black women in the suffrage movement. Sojourner Truth and others who came on board, they met vehement racism from white women until they realized that nobody was as good as these black women coming forward to help them. So when they went to fight, in fact, A. Philip Randolph helped them. And when they started advocating for black people to get the right to vote, you know who the number one enemy of black people getting the right to vote was? White women. They were so insulted at the idea that black people, black men in particular, would be able to vote before white women. They were up in arms. What am I saying? I'm saying we're talking about Memorial Day. We're talking about freedom. How much freedom are we really afforded? See, when you have a man like the Honorable Brother Minister Louis Farrakhan banned from a platform that has, oh my God, I forget the number of millions, billions of people on this platform. Out of all of these people globally on the platform, here's a man taking drug addicts and cleaning them up with a word. Here's a man taking guys from the streets that's downright, got a resume, of hurting people, killing people, and cleaning them up with a word. Here's a man taking prostitutes and making them close their knees. Here's a man taking freaks and making them come out of their freakishness. Here's a man who takes people who doubt or disbelieve that there's even a reason to believe in God and giving them faith again. Here's a man taking taking people who don't believe in soap and water, but they taking baths and showers twice and 3 times a day. Here's a man who's taking people with high blood pressure, diabetes, kidney failure, cirrhosis of the liver, cancer, you name it. He's taking these people and with a word, making them the healthiest people in the black community and on the planet, but you ban him from the platform. How much freedom do you really have? So you can go on social media, pull up your skirt, take your panties off, and shake your big butt on social media, and they'll never ban you. You can go on Instagram and you can drop it like it's hot, and they not gonna ban you. So what do you have freedom to do is the question. Why do you have freedom to do one thing, but you don't have freedom to do the other? See, when real freedom means that, okay, let's talk about who really killed John F. Kennedy. So if I start talking about connecting the dots of what white scholars and researchers have uncovered about the role of the United States government and the Jewish, Sicilian, Italian mafioso connection and the IRS connection, Federal Reserve connection all of these connections to the death of the president of the United States of America. If I go too hard, you ban me. So what do I have freedom to talk about? You know, it's Memorial Day. They died for our freedom. So let's look at it. Don't get me wrong. I love, I honor, I respect soldiers of every ilk. And the reason I respect the American soldier is because every man should be willing to die for the protection of what he loves. But the problem is we have been miseducated, misinformed, misdirected, and deceived by the political structure to go into war under false pretenses and to die for the benefit of a handful of wealthy people, the top 3 to 5%. And so we got to talk about that every now and then. Let's go a little bit further. I don't have much time left. But I want to ask you a question. What makes a people so bloodthirsty? What is in a people that they will take? You see, when you hear the government debating the debt ceiling, and you hear the Republicans talking about social programs need to be cut out and less government, what you never hear the Democrats or the Republicans talk about is the inordinate amount of money, taxpayer money, that is being gift wrapped to the Department of Defense. The billions of dollars, the trillions of dollars that are wrapped up and bundled in special interest contracts to Boeing and Lockheed Martin and dozens of other contractors that we don't know anything about, who are making bullets and bombs and munitions and tripwire and mortars and tanks and armored cars and the whole package deal of everything that comes with one running a military. They don't tell you that they drive wars to keep money coming in for these wealthy military contractors who, if you start chopping down on these wars, if you started settling conflicts diplomatically, a lot of these businesses would have to go out of business. So you think about this. Corporate heads, corporate leadership, CEOs, presidents, board of directors, as well as your congressmen. Yeah, Danny Davis, Congressman Rush, Dick Durbin, Jan Schakowsky, the other girl, the military girl, I can't think of her name. All of them. They're right there on the floor of Congress, looking the other way on how the military is breaking America. When you got American veterans sleeping on the side of roads right now, under bridges right now, who need mental health attention and care, who cannot get care, that happen to survive the theater war or the military experience. You got homeless Americans, period. How can you justify morally? I read a story that they discovered, I think he was a Navy officer, was ordering pens for his office that cost over $1,000 a pen. This is how much money they're squandering in the name of the Defense Department, taxpayer money. But your elected officials don't talk about this. Why don't they come on the television and do a national broadcast on Memorial Day and list all of the lives that have been lost? List all the money they're spending on the military. They don't know station talks about this. You want to balance the American budget? You want to close the deficit? You want to make sure you have money for Social Security. You want to make sure you have money to take care of the disasters that God is striking America with, and her own ignorance is facilitating because of corrupt corporations that don't care what they do to the earth. You want to have money to deal with all of that? Stop giving all the money to the military to go around the world and steal resources by killing people, either through injection, through bullets and bombs. And it just amazes me. I listen to white people on the radio. They're baffled as to why right now in, I think it's the Sudan, where there's an outbreak of Ebola, and they're baffled as to why the people in the Sudan are attacking the healthcare workers. Why don't they trust us to vaccinate the villages? Well, damn it, are you out of your mind? You think people are not watching? The problem is even our doctors are ignorant of how they're being used many times by corporate interests and government interests to facilitate an agenda that has nothing to do with life, but everything to do with death. They've got us programmed. So you take your baby comes straight out of your womb, and you let them take your baby and shoot them, in the back room, on the side room, in the delivery room, and they just inject your baby with whatever's in the syringe, and you don't think nothing about it. Well, let me get back on topic here. I'm on topic, but let me try to come back to this Memorial Day concept. Memorial Day came about, as some of you know, white folks weren't concerned with the fallen soldiers. It was some black women and a town of black people who said, you know what? These graves of these soldiers, it's terrible that they're being overlooked and neglected. Let us come together. This is what black people do. We come from a different culture. We're communal people. We share with each other. This is in the nature of black people if you leave us alone. So black folks came together and said, we're going to honor these fallen soldiers, many of whom were black. we're going to make sure that we do something to celebrate them. So they cleaned up the graves. They put up memorials. They organized parade. They organized festivities. But this is part and parcel of what brings any meaning and rhythm and culture and flavor to America. It's always some black people giving of themselves to lift America up, but then white Americans will come and take it and run with it and never give credit to their former slave for anything. And if you got to put us on a $20 bill, damn it, we're going to wait another 10 years before we put you on the $20 bill. We know you did a heroic thing going down back into the deep South and freeing all these people who were being treated less than animals. And as a little black woman, you did all this stuff. And yeah, you was a courageous one and a history maker, but damn it, it's too much to give you credit on a $20 bill. We're going to honor Mr. Jackson, who was a slave owner. And then we got black folks running around talking about Trump. Trump has not done anything against black people. Are you out of your cotton picking mind? Yeah, I said cotton picking because you thinking like a slave. Don't excuse Trump to get at your Democratic enemies, because they really both the same. When it comes to looking at black people, underneath it all, they feel the same. It's just one will act like they're our friend, give us some resources as long as we put them in control or put people in control that they approve of. The other one, goes about it a little bit different. But they all pushing for the same thing, white people on top. You think the Democrats don't have that philosophy? You out of your cotton picking mind. So now, black people, you really are secondary to the LGBTQ community. They wrap themselves so thoroughly in the vestiges of the civil rights movement to advance the LGBTQ agenda that now our people, some of us, applauded and supported. But like I'm saying about Memorial Day, we are constantly being programmed. We're constantly being dumbed down. And anytime you start waving the flag, you've been put to death in your mind. And you need to connect with some truth that will awaken your consciousness. And that's why, again, I'm going to say it again. This is why a man like Mr. Farrakhan has ultimately had to be banned from social media, because Trump and Mr. Bolton right now are ramping up a war against Iran, because Bolton's got this fetish for Iran, and they moving troops, they moving ships, they doing all these maneuvers while all the time the white media is complicit, repeating the lies they're telling the American people that it's all about safety and security. And where did white folks back white folks up? Sometimes it's because they stupid. Other times it's because they just as racist as the one they calling a racist. But they ramping up war, and they don't want a voice like Farrakhan's out here pointing out the contradictions. They don't want a man like that to take a trip to Iran in the middle of conflict like he did in the middle of the Libyan conflict, the first one, and come back and report the truth of what America is doing overseas. So they trying to cut off your access to voices of truth, because they know your congressman, your senator, your alderman, your Cook County commissioner, all these people, they don't have the courage. They don't have no fortitude to tell you no. They won't tell the truth on the mayor. They won't tell the truth on these local activities, let alone a national thing. So they're cutting off access to truth. So now, as I wrap this thing up about Memorial Day, over 42 million American military dead, most of it under false pretenses. and counting. If we tally up the civilian loss and the military loss on the other sides of the enemy combatants, it's hundreds of millions. So, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that whites have killed over 100 million people for every 1,000 years they've been on the planet. But if we just look at America's casualty rate, they don't tell you how many innocent people died in Iraq, Iraq-Iran conflict, in Afghanistan, in Vietnam, in Cambodia. Oh man, all around the world, all these conflicts, how many innocent people they killed in Africa, somewhere on the continent of Africa. They don't tell you all the people they murdered. So America could get the raw materials to make a GMC truck, a Ford truck, a Chevy automobile. They don't tell you all of these things because they know that even if they told you, you wouldn't know what to do. And so I want us to think about these holidays on a deeper level. Because I don't believe the universe is constructed in a way that a people as bloodthirsty as the United States government of America has demonstrated itself to be, I believe the universe is going to tolerate America forever. And if you are a God-fearing, believing man like me, God cannot be God and allow America to get away with what she has done. And so maybe it's something to Minister Farrakhan saying, watch the weather. I don't know. Maybe it's something to these strange weather patterns that's striking America out of nowhere, depleting her funds and her coffers, frightening the hell out of white people who are living somewhere thinking they're innocent of the crimes of their fathers and their leaders. I don't know. Maybe it's something to that. Maybe we need to consider the time in which we live and understand that we've got to do a better job of educating our children. We've got to do a better job of preparing our children to have a future where they run and control their own community. We've got to educate our young people. Can they run a power grid for a major city? Can they run a major water reclamation district for a major city? Can they do the engineering to plot out the infrastructure of a major city? We need to stop sending our boys and girls to school just to sing and to dance or to be some doggone, I don't know, something that they really can't use. We got to get prepared because white people cannot stay in power forever the way they are destroying life. They're destroying the very life of the earth itself, and it is impossible for them to rule forever. But are we prepared to take over? And so I close like this. We can't take over, conscious people, with incense and shea butter. We can't take over thinking we're qualified because we got dreadlocks or a kufi or a beard or a dashiki or a mudcloth. My Muslim family, we can't take over because we use a mishwak or we go to Salat or Juma prayer every Friday, or we know how to sell papers or push bean pies or hold a post or door posts or whatever. We can't take over and run a whole new world with this kind of thinking. We have to be prepared. If we want God to bring justice, are we prepared to inherit the land? because we will inherit the land almost without a shot. I believe that because that's what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said God told him. And I believe that. You don't have to believe it the way I believe it, but it's written in the Bible. It's written in the prophecies of the Quran. And that's a very spiritual thing. So you don't have to swallow it like that. But look at the arc of history. Where's Rome? Where's Greece? Where's the empires of Europe? What happened to them? What happened to the great British Empire? What's happening to them now? All you got to do is look at how history is circling itself around in a certain direction and where America fits in the evolving sands of time. And so I want you to go back and say a prayer for our ancestors who died on the battlefields because they wanted freedom, real freedom, because they wanted to prove themselves that they were dignified, capable people. They went into the theaters of war and they gave their lives to America so you and I could be here today, to give me the right to articulate myself over the internet, over the radio. Some people died for this. So we should pray for our ancestors on Memorial Day. We should honor them on Memorial Day. And when we see our black elders who served in the military, whether we agree with America's military or not, we should do our best to honor and respect them because they paid a price for us. So I thank you on behalf of the New Black Leadership Coalition for tuning in to us once again. We hope to see you again next week. Peace and blessings.